What would you do if you woke up in the middle of the night to find a clown sitting in your living room staring at you with a creepy smile? I woke up to the sound of something creaking, the kind of noise that makes your skin prickle in the darkness. My eyelids were heavy with the remnants of sleep, but the sound pulled me from the depths of my dreamless rest. The house was silent, too silent, and the only light came from the dim street lamp outside filtering through the thin curtains. I glanced at the clock on my nightstand, 3:07 a.m. That unsettling hour when the world seems to hold its breath, and shadows seem just a little too dark. I lay there for a moment, heart pounding, trying to convince myself that the noise was nothing. Maybe it was the house settling, or the wind pushing against the walls. But there was no wind tonight, no storm. Just an eerie stillness that hung in the air like a suffocating blanket. Eventually, I decided to get up, more to reassure myself than anything. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and pushed myself to my feet. The floorboards were cold underfoot, sending a shiver up my spine. As I walked down the hallway, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The silence was oppressive, thick with an anticipation that I couldn't explain. I reached the living room and flicked the light switch. The bulb hummed to life, casting a soft yellow glow across the room. Everything seemed normal at first glance. My old couch, the coffee table cluttered with magazines and empty mugs, the TV remote carelessly tossed on the armrest. But then I saw it. A clown. Sitting in the chair opposite the couch, illuminated by the warm light, its garish makeup almost glowing against the darkness of the room. Its eyes were wide, exaggerated by the thick black lines painted around them, and its lips were drawn into an unnerving, exaggerated smile, frozen in time by a thick layer of grease paint. The outfit was an explosion of color, reds, blues, yellows, all clashing together in a chaotic mess. A bright red wig sat atop its head, frizzy and wild. It just sat there, staring at me. For a moment, I thought I was still dreaming. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and looked again. But it was still there, unmoving, its eyes fixed on me as though it had been waiting for this exact moment. My breath caught in my throat, and my legs refused to move. I couldn't understand it. How could this thing be here? How had it gotten into my house? I hadn't heard the door, hadn't seen any signs of a break-in. It was just there. I wanted to scream, but the sound died in my throat. I felt paralyzed, as if the clown's gaze had trapped me in place. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the impossible. Maybe it was a prank, I thought desperately. But who would do something like this? Who would go to such lengths to terrify me? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I found my voice. Who are you? I stammered, the words barely audible. The clown didn't respond. It just continued to stare, its smile never wavering. My heart hammered in my chest as I took a tentative step backward, but the clown remained still, as if it was waiting for something. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy, making the room feel smaller, the air harder to breathe. "I'm calling the police," I managed to say, though my voice was shaky, uncertain. My hand fumbled for my phone, which I had left charging on the coffee table. I kept my eyes on the clown as I reached for it, not daring to look away. But when I glanced down for just a second to grab the phone, I heard it, a faint rustling sound, like fabric shifting. I looked up, and my blood ran cold. The clown was no longer sitting. It was standing now, its gangly limbs stretched out, towering over the chair. The smile was still plastered on its face, but there was something different in its eyes, a glimmer of malice that hadn't been there before. It took a step forward, and I instinctively took another step back, my hands trembling as I held the phone. "Stay away from me," I whispered, my voice shaking uncontrollably. I couldn't dial the number, my fingers refused to move with any sense of coordination. Panic was taking over, and I knew I had to do something before it was too late. The clown took another step, its shoes squeaking on the hardwood floor. The sound was unnervingly loud in the quiet of the room, sending a jolt of terror through me. It raised one hand, fingers splayed, as if reaching out for me. The hand was gloved, white and pristine, but something dark and sticky dripped from the fingertips, staining the floor as it moved closer. I couldn't stay there. Whatever this was, it wasn't human. I turned and bolted down the hallway, nearly slipping as I raced toward the front door. My breath was ragged, each gasp of air burning in my lungs. I could hear the clown behind me, its footsteps slow and deliberate, like it knew it had all the time in the world. I reached the door and yanked it open, almost falling out onto the front steps in my haste. I didn't care that I was barefoot, didn't care that the night air was freezing against my skin. I just needed to get away. I stumbled down the steps and onto the street, glancing over my shoulder as I ran. The clown was standing in the doorway, still smiling, its head tilted slightly to the side as it watched me flee. It didn't follow me out, just stood there, a silent sentinel in the night. I ran until my legs gave out, until I collapsed onto the sidewalk several blocks away, my heart pounding in my chest like it was trying to escape. I couldn't think, couldn't process what had just happened. I just lay there, staring up at the stars, trying to convince myself that I wasn't losing my mind. But when I finally found the strength to get up and look back toward my house, I saw it. The clown was gone. The police arrived shortly after. I don't remember calling them, but my phone was in my hand, and the last number dialed was 911. They searched the house, top to bottom, but found nothing out of the ordinary. No sign of forced entry, no trace of the clown. It was as if it had never been there at all. I tried to explain what I had seen, but I could tell they didn't believe me. Who would? A clown appearing in the middle of the night and vanishing without a trace? It sounded like the plot of a bad horror movie, not something that could happen in real life. Eventually, they left, advising me to get some rest and call them if anything else happened. I nodded, but I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep. Not after what I had seen. The house felt different now, tainted by the presence of something unnatural. Every shadow seemed to hide a pair of painted eyes, every creak and groan a reminder that I was no longer alone. I tried to stay awake, sitting on the couch with every light in the house turned on, but exhaustion eventually caught up with me. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, it was morning. The sunlight streaming through the windows did little to chase away the lingering unease. I checked every room again, just to be sure, but there was no sign of the clown. No smeared makeup, no traces of blood on the floor where it had dripped from its glove. Nothing. It was as if it had all been a nightmare, but I knew it hadn't. The fear I had felt was too real, too visceral. I tried to go about my day as if everything was normal, but the image of that clown haunted me. I couldn't focus at work, couldn't eat, couldn't do anything without feeling like it was watching me, waiting for the right moment to return. The hours dragged by, each one slower than the last, until finally, it was night again. I was terrified to go to sleep, but my body couldn't keep up with the constant state of fear. I eventually collapsed into bed, praying that the clown wouldn't come back. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. I was right. That night, I woke up to the sound of soft, muffled laughter. It was coming from the living room. My heart stopped as I realized what it was. The clown was back. I didn't want to go out there, didn't want to see it again, but something compelled me to move. It was like I was being drawn toward the laughter, as if I had no choice in the matter. I slid out of bed, my legs shaking, and slowly made my way down the hall. The door to the living room was ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hallway. The laughter grew louder, more distinct, as I approached. It wasn't the joyful sound of someone having fun, it was something else, something darker, almost mocking. I pushed the door open the rest of the way, and there it was. The clown was standing in the middle of the room, its back to me, facing the wall. It was laughing softly, its shoulders shaking with each burst of sound. I couldn't see its face, but I didn't need to. I knew that smile was still there, fixed in place like a mask. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. My feet were rooted to the spot, and my voice had abandoned me. I could only watch, helpless, as the clown slowly turned around to face me. The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence that was somehow even worse. Its eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something other than that empty, painted expression. There was recognition there, an understanding that chilled me to the bone. It knew me. It had always known me. The clown took a step forward, and this time, I couldn't move. My body refused to obey the frantic commands of my mind, and I stood there, frozen in place, as it approached. Its hand reached out, and I felt a cold, clammy grip on my wrist. The touch sent a jolt of terror through me, and finally, my legs gave way. I collapsed to the floor, but the clown didn't let go. It loomed over me, its smile widening, eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. I struggled, tried to pull away, but it was no use. The clown was impossibly strong, its grip like iron. "You can't escape," it whispered, its voice a raspy hiss that sent shivers down my spine. "You can't run from what you are." The words didn't make sense, but they filled me with a deep, primal fear. I felt something cold and sharp press against my throat, a knife, held by the clown's other hand. I realized with a sickening dread that this was the end. There was no escaping this nightmare. But then, just as I thought it was over, the clown's grip loosened. The pressure of the blade against my skin eased, and I looked up in confusion. The clown was still smiling, but there was something different in its eyes, a flicker of hesitation, or maybe regret. It leaned in close, its face inches from mine, and whispered one final thing before it released me. "Remember." And then, just like that, it was gone. I gasped for air, my hand flying to my throat where the knife had been. There was no blood, no wound. Just the lingering sensation of cold steel. The living room was empty, the only sound my own ragged breathing. I didn't know what to think, didn't know how to process what had just happened. All I knew was that the clown was gone, and I was still alive. But as I sat there on the floor, trying to calm my racing heart, a single word echoed in my mind, over and over again. Remember. The days that followed were a blur of fear and confusion. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the clown was still out there somewhere, waiting. But it didn't return, and slowly, life began to return to some semblance of normality. I tried to forget about it, tried to convince myself that it was all just a bad dream, but the memory of that night refused to fade. The word remember haunted me, echoing in my mind at the most unexpected moments, as if trying to remind me of something important. Then, one day, I found it. I was cleaning out the attic, trying to distract myself from the lingering unease that had become my constant companion, when I stumbled across an old, dusty box. It was tucked away in a corner, half hidden under a pile of forgotten junk. There was no label on it, nothing to indicate what it held, but something compelled me to open it. Inside was a collection of old photographs, yellowed with age. As I sifted through them, my breath caught in my throat. There, in the faded images, was a face I recognized. A clown. Not the same clown that had haunted me in the night, but another, its makeup different, yet disturbingly familiar. The photographs were of a circus, long gone, its performers captured in black and white. But it was the clown that held my attention, its face frozen in that same unnerving smile. As I continued to go through the photos, I found one that made my blood run cold. It was a picture of a child, me, no more than 5 years old, standing next to the clown, holding its hand, smiling up at it with innocent joy. I didn't remember this, didn't remember ever meeting a clown, let alone one as eerie as this. And yet, there it was, undeniable proof that I had. At the bottom of the box, I found something else, a small, tattered book. The cover was worn and faded, the title barely legible, The Circus of Shadows. I opened it with trembling hands, and as I began to read, everything came flooding back. The memories I had buried, the truth I had forgotten. The circus had come to town when I was a child, a traveling show that promised wonder and excitement. But there was something wrong with it, something dark hidden beneath the bright lights and colorful tents. I remembered the clown now, remembered how it had singled me out, how it had followed me, even after the circus left. I had been terrified, but no one believed me. They said it was just my imagination, a child's overactive mind. But I knew the truth, even then. The clown was real, and it wanted something from me. But what? I read through the book, desperate for answers, and slowly, the pieces began to fit together. The clown was part of something ancient, something that fed on fear, on memories. It had marked me, chosen me for reasons I still didn't understand. And it had been waiting all these years, waiting for the right moment to return. That night had been a test, a way to see if I remembered. But now that I did, I knew it wasn't over. The clown would come back. And this time, it wouldn't leave until it got what it wanted. I don't know how long I have, how much time I have left before the clown returns. But I know it will. It's only a matter of time. The memories I had buried for so long have resurfaced, and with them, the terror I thought I had left behind. But now, I'm not just scared. I'm angry. Angry that it took so much from me, that it has haunted my life for so long. I won't let it win. I'll be ready when it comes, ready to face it, to end this once and for all. But deep down, I know it won't be that simple. The clown is more than just a nightmare. It's something much worse, something that has been with me my whole life, hiding in the shadows, waiting. Waiting for me to remember. And now that I do, the real horror begins. Months have passed since that night, and I haven't seen the clown again. But the fear remains, a constant presence in the back of my mind. I've moved, changed my name, done everything I can to escape, but I know it's only a temporary reprieve. Because every now and then, in the dead of night, I hear it. The soft, mocking laughter echoing from somewhere deep in the darkness. And I know it's only a matter of time before the clown comes back for me. The game isn't over. It's just beginning. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more spine-tingling tales.